Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to the spring campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. Last week when we did the gathering, we picked up 7 experience, but Daisy ended up with a mental trauma for watching her house burn to the ground.
Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight from the future here. So one thing I realized that I haven't done yet is I've thrown around the word trauma a couple of times, but I've never bothered to explain what it really means for the benefit of anyone playing along with the campaign. So, when an investigator takes trauma, it's a permanent 1 damage or sanity to whatever kind of trauma they take. So if they take a physical trauma, they would take 1 damage. If they take a mental trauma, they would take 1 sanity. So what trauma means actually is it's damage or sanity that you start the scenario with. It can be healed off like normal during the course of a scenario, but very rarely, except in case of a scenario resolution or even something like the house rule that I have around trauma, you can heal trauma. There are very few ways you can actually heal trauma in this game, but just as a quick reminder of around my house rule, I ruled that I can spend 4 experience per trauma to clear a point of trauma, or at the end of a campaign, I'm allowing myself to spend the lesser of 4 experience per or 10 experience to clear my trauma. So that's just a quick reminder of how trauma works. Back to the scenario introduction.
With that, we're all set for the second scenario, the Midnight Masks. First up, let's go ahead and set the scene.
Scenario 2, the Midnight Masks. Check campaign log. If Lita was forced to find others to help her cause, read intro 1. Otherwise, skip to intro 2.
Now we were able to... Now Lita did join us to help her cause, so if I can ever make this cooperate, we'll go to intro 2.
Intro 2. In the wake of the disaster at your home, Lita Chandler, the red-haired woman from your parlor, lays out a tale that, even in light of what you have just witnessed, strains the limits of your belief. The creatures in your home, she claims, are called ghouls, cruel beings who plague the crypts, caverns, and tunnels beneath the city of Arkham. Continue to intro 3. Intro 2.
No.
In the wake of the disaster at your home, Lita Chandler... Intro 3.
There we go.
These creatures feed on the corpses of humans, and they are served by a dark cult within Arkham, whose members have inexplicably come to worship the ancient master of the ghouls. This cult has been killing innocent people and feeding them to the ghouls, satiating a monstrous hunger. A dark balance was maintained. Until now. Recently, Lita continues, one of their lairs where the corpses were stored was destroyed. Since then, the ghouls have been more active than usual. I have tracked their movements and tried my best to stop them from running amok throughout the city, but I think there is something worse going on. The cult has been planning something darker and more ominous than anything I have yet observed. Indications are that this plan shall come to fruition tonight, shortly after midnight. Beyond that, I cannot fathom what to expect. Many of the cultists, Lita continues, will seem like everyday people, despite their foul intentions. Whenever the cult meets, its members don masks shaped like the skulls of various animals to protect their identities from one another. These masks are our mark, symbols of death and decay. We must unmask the cultists to expose and derail their plans. We have but a few hours. The more cultists we find before midnight, the better.
And that fact will play into the entire scenario, but it will also play into some... It's going to get a little metagamey, but it could play into some decisions I make in terms of both how I play this scenario and the upgrades I make for the next scenario. But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves on that front. We're going to stay focused on this scenario. So let's continue by reminding everyone of our tarot reading. So on the good side, we left Strength 8. So when the game begins, each investigator will be able to play an asset from their hand at -2 cost. On the bad side, we flipped the Devil 15. So each investigator will have 3 fewer slots, each of a different type, chosen by that investigator before the game begins. So both of them And I made this decision back when I first did the tarot reading. So we're going to lose our tarot slot, our body slot, and one arcane slot. I do not want to be losing hand slots here. I also want to keep that, put that back on Daisy. Okay. So next up, we're going to take a look at our starting hands. Zoey will actually be our lead investigator this time. So we do have 2 assets that Zoey can choose from. First up, we have Hyper Awareness. This is one of her Dunwich splash cards. 2 cost to play, lore and agility on a commit. And you can spend a resource for one of either lore or agility. The asset we're more likely to play, though, is the Enchanted Blade level 3. 3 cost to play, which would be 1, thanks to Strength 8. Lore and combat on commit. 3 charges. As an action, fight with +2 combat for the attack. If you succeed, you may spend 1 charge to empower the blade, dealing +1 damage for the attack. If the blade is empowered and this attack defeats an enemy, draw a card and heal a horror. Except Zoey's coming in at full strength, so I'm not that worried about it. Then we've got 2 commits. 2 skills that we can commit. Unexpected Courage and Guts. Unexpected Courage gives you 2 of any skill. Guts gives you 2 will, but also if you succeed, draw a card. I'll go through flavor text when I actually play them out. And finally, we have a copy of Emergency Cash to gain 3 resources. So a good turn with Zoey right now, without factoring the tarot cards in, could be, the first 2 actions could be Emergency Cash and the blade in some order, but I'm not factoring the tarot reading into that. Similarly, Daisy has a few choices as well for an asset to play, including at least one I'm going to be a little happier to see later, but we'll point that out when we get to it. So first asset we have to choose from is the Hawkeye folding camera. 2 costs to play, will on commit. After the last clue is discovered from your location, place a resource from the token pool on it as evidence. Limit once per game at each location. While Hawkeye folding camera has 1 or more evidence, get +1 will. 2 or more evidence, +1 lore. 3 or more evidence, +1 sanity. Takes up a hand slot, and that could be useful for washing out the mental trauma that Daisy took on in the last scenario. Then we have a copy of Shriveling. 3 costs to play, combat on commit. 4 charges. As an action, you can spend a charge to fight using will instead of combat and deal +1 damage. But if you pull a bad symbol, take 1 horror. Finally, this is actually the card I'd be happy to see later. Occult Lexicon, which is a 2 cost to play, lore on commit. Limit 1 per deck. Forced. After it enters play, search your bonded cards for 3 copies of Bloodright. Add 1 to your hand and shuffle the other 2 into your deck. When Occult Lexicon leaves play, find each of those copies of Bloodright, even if they are out of play, and remove them from the game. Now, like I mentioned, I'd be happier to see this later, and you're probably asking, Phoenix Knight, why would you be happier to see this card later? Unfortunately, this is one of those situations where explaining now is also going to get into metagaming territory. For now, I'll suffice it to say that it gives me testless damage, and I'm probably going to need that later in the scenario. But again, I'll point that out when it becomes relevant. We've also got something we might need fairly immediately in Deduction Level 2. 2 lore on commit. If the skill test is successful on investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at that location, 2 additional clues instead if you succeed by 2 or more. Finally, we have a copy of Eureka. Will, lore, or agility on commit. And if you're successful, the investigator performing the test searches the top 3 cards of his or her deck for a card, draws it, and shuffles his or her deck. As we saw, I think we saw this last week, the difference between something like, say, Guts and Eureka is if Daisy gives this to Zoey on a test, then Zoey would get to search. But if Zoey gives Guts to Daisy, then Zoey still draws the card because of how it's worded. So just something to keep in mind on that as you consider where to pass skill commits. Next up, let's go ahead and take a look at the Act and Agenda deck. So we'll take a look at our agenda first. Agenda 1A, Predator or Prey. Lita seems convinced of a conspiracy within the city of Arkham. She believes that a secret cult serves the ghouls that live in the crypt beneath the city, and that several of the cult's prominent members are scattered throughout Arkham. As you begin searching for them, you can't shake the feeling that you, too, are being hunted. Action, resign. You don't want to risk taking too long, so you head to safety with the information you've gathered. So we'll definitely need to keep an eye on our health and the doom clock a little bit. So we do have the resign option there in case things start to go a little bit haywire. Before we get into the act, I will mention as a potential suggestion, when you have a resign option like that, it can potentially be helpful, especially when you know you're about to suffer a trauma, to resign from a scenario, because remember, resign is one of the 4 actions that does not trigger an attack of opportunity. So as a reminder, those 4 actions are resign, fight, evade, and parlay. If you try to take anything else while you're engaged with an enemy, you will trigger an attack of opportunity, so keep that in mind. Now let's take a look at our act. We have only the 1 from the looks of it. Act 1A, Uncovering the Conspiracy. You have 1 night to find the members of this cult and unveil their plan. The more members of the cult you can find and interrogate before midnight, the better. The investigators spend 2 per investigators as a group. Draw the top card of the cultist deck. Objective: find as many unique cultist enemies as you can and add them to the victory display. If there are 6 unique cultists in the enemies in the victory display, advance. Note, not all 6 of them are in the cultist deck. Okay, so that is handy to know. Let's see. 1, 2... Oh, wait. Okay, I gotta redo a little bit of this, I think. Yep, okay. Alright, so you guys, I think... Right. Okay, you're the 3 I don't want to see. Sorry, I was just double checking something on setup because as soon as it said that, I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Okay, something's not right here, and I figured out what that something was. Because I knew I had too many cultists in the... I had a feeling I had too many cultists in the deck, but we're all set up now on that. With that, though, Daisy and Zoe are going to move over to the map, so let's meet them over there. Here's our starting map. There would be a location... If you're playing along with the scenario, you may have a 9th location down here for your house. But because we burned it to the ground, we're not going to have that location up here. And that reminds me, if you are playing along with the campaign, I'm curious to hear how you guys are doing in the comments section down below. So just let me know if you have any questions or just want to comment on how the campaign's going. I'm curious to know. So because we don't have our house in play, we're actually starting up at Rivertown. So let's see what we've got to find here. The banks of the Miskatonic River are lined with docks, warehouses, and small shops in a district aptly named Rivertown. So this will reveal into Shroud of 1, 2 clues. There's something unsettling about the water of the Miskatonic River tonight. It ripbles and bubbles as though something is moving beneath the surface. All right, I will get the 2 clues for that. Then before the game starts, well, actually, we're basically into the start of the game now because we'll be jumping into the investigation phase in a minute. Daisy will play out the Hawkeye folding camera. This is a 0 cost because, remember, we're reduced by 2 thanks to Strength 8. So we'll put that into play right away. As for Zoe, I can make an argument for either asset, but I'm going to pay 1 to go with the Enchanted Blade. I'll have to be careful with Zoe, though, because since it has an arcane slot on it, that is her 1 arcane slot for the scenario. How many charges does that get? 3. Okay. Also, I should mention that as part of setup, it instructed us to go find an acolyte. So we'll take a look at the acolyte at the south side. 3, 1, 2 are the stats. Fight, health, and evade. Humanoid cultist. Spawn at any empty location. Forced. After acolyte enters play, place 1 doom on it. It was only a small sacrifice. Does 1 damage on attack. Good to know there. Now, when it comes to who starts a scenario, unless I have a good reason to, I normally default to lead investigator first. But I do have a good reason here, that being we need so many clues, So we're actually going to go to Daisy first, and we're going to stay right here at the map. It would be tempting to burn the deduction here just to try to get a 2-clue jump for one action. But given that Daisy's up 4 on the location, or on the shroud at that location, I think we're going to just do a regular investigate there. So Daisy's at a 5-1, she's up 4. Rune, let's go see what the rune is. The rune is -3. If you fail, place one of your clues on your location. Daisy didn't fail, she gets a clue off of there. Action 2, we'll run that back, hopefully without pulling another rune. A +1 gets her the other clue and her first evidence on Hawkeye folding camera. So let's grab... This will represent evidence. I love these brass back tokens from LCG. As always, all those component links will be in the description down below. Then action 3. I hate the idea of splitting them up, but I think I'm going to. So I'm going to send Daisy to... let's send her to Miskatonic University. So we'll take a look at this. Miskatonic University is one of the most prestigious colleges in the Northeast. The university library is famous for its collection of occult books maintained by the esteemed Dr. Henry Armitage. I'm pretty sure this is the library Daisy works at too in her backstory. So this reveals into Shroud of 4 clues. As an action, search the top 6 cards of your deck for a tome, spell, or spell card and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. The campus is quiet and lonely. Several of the buildings have been left unlocked for students and faculty working late into the night. Victory 1, as you can tell by that icon, by that text down there. So Victory 1, as you might recall, is how you gain experience to be able to upgrade the decks. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking that's actually going to be a pretty good target for that deduction that I kept in Daisy's hand. But I'm getting ahead of myself there, so Daisy will flip that over as she's done. I think Zoe's going to stay right here at the map. So for action 1, she's going to go make friends with this acolyte. So we'll take a look at Southside. Middle-class houses with gambrel roofs crowd together between the streets of Southside. The neighborhood is known for its cultural and social landmarks, such as South Church, Ma's boarding house, and the Historical Society. So this will flip into Shroud of 2 clues. As an action, search your deck for an ally asset and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. Limit once per game. Ma's is known for its cheap rooms and mystery meat Mondays. A motley variety of characters can be found coming and going at all times of the day. So we'll get the 2 clues for that. The Acolyte will move over to Zoe's threat area, and then Zoe will actually gain a resource because of her special ability that when she becomes engaged with an enemy, she gains a resource. Action 2, she's going to jump on the Acolyte right away with her blade. So 4, 5, 6. To 3, she's up 3, and I'm not going to bother empowering the blade because the Acolyte only has 1 health. Skull brings us back over to the scenario card. -X, where X is the highest number of doom on a cultist enemy in play, which right now is 1 because the Acolyte's in play, except it's not anymore thanks to Zoe's handiwork with a blade. And then for action 3, I think for action 3 we're going to pay 2 resources to get her hyper-awareness into play. So that was our resource dump for lore and agility. So that will do it for Zoey. That'll do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, we're just going to blow right through because Zoey killed our only enemy in play. So we'll go ahead and start resetting everything, including our actions. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Zoey will gain 1 resource and go to 4. Daisy will gain 1 and go to 6. Zoey will draw. Zoey's Cross. This is a sight for sore eyes. 1 cost to play, 2 combat, and a question mark on commit. Also, symbol of righteousness. Zoey Samurus deck only. As an action, after an enemy becomes engaged with you, exhaust Zoey's Cross and spend 1 resource, deal 1 damage to it. Daisy draws. Higher Education, 0 cost to play, will and lore on commit. While you have 5 or more cards in hand, it becomes a resource dump for will and lore for Daisy. I would have been a lot happier to see Zoey's Cross in her opening hand, because I could have actually gone into Southside and killed that Acolyte for free, but as it is, we will probably be playing that on Zoey's next turn, but let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. Mythos phase, we start by putting our first Doom on the agenda. And if we'd left the Acolyte in play, we'd actually be at 2 in play right now, but since Zoey took the liberty of jumping on that Acolyte, we only have the 1 Doom in play. So Zoey will draw. Hunting Night Gaunt. Okay, so never mind that plan. 3-4-1 on the stats. It's a hunter. While attempting to evade Hunting Night Gaunt, double the negative modifier of each revealed chaos token. They had no faces at all to smile with, but only a suggestive blankness where a face might be. HP Lovecraft. 1 health, 1 damage, 1 sanity on attack. Daisy draws. On Wings of Darkness, oh joy. Test Revelation, test Agility 4. If you fail, take 1 damage and 1 horror. Then, disengage from each non-Night Gaunt enemy engaged with you and move to a central location. A Night Gaunt swoops down from the sky and grabs you with its clawed hands, carrying you off into the night. Right, so Daisy's down 2 on this. I don't really want to commit I could commit Eureka. The problem with doing that right now is Eureka, just as a quick look as a refresher on Eureka, we do have 1 agility on it. The problem is I'm already testing down 2. So a Eureka would bring me down 1 and I'd be hoping for a pull at that point, which that's not a situation I really like being in. So I think we're just going to take this one on the chin and test down 2, which I might not completely mind that actually, now that I think about it. But we'll see what we can do here. A -1, which is kind of where I figured I was going to be. So Daisy takes 1 damage and 1 sanity, and she moves back into Rivertown. The only thing I don't necessarily like about that is it pulls me away from the clues, which means there's more bad stuff that can happen, but it might potentially give me a way to help Zoey with getting rid of the Night Gaunt. But, So we are into the investigation phase now, and as much as I don't want to spend Zoey's entire turn dealing with that Night Gaunt, I should gain a resource from becoming engaged with a Night Gaunt. I did almost forget about Zoey's special ability. So, I could try to evade it up 1, committing Unexpected Courage to go up 3, but with as many negative modifiers as there are in the bag, I'd still be stuck in the same situation. So why don't I have... Let's actually have Zoey go first, and we'll jump down to her play area. We're not quite ready to bring a cultist out yet. So I think Zoey for Action 1 is going to try to evade this Night Gaunt. So I'm going to commit Unexpected Courage to go up 3. Then I'm going to pump... How many resources do I want to pump into this? 2 resources to go up 5, mostly because I'm worried about doubling negative modifiers in the bag. A +1 will get Zoey away from the Night Gaunt. Alright, then Action 2, I think we'll bring Zoey down to 2 resources to play out her cross, which will be very handy to have. And then Action 3 will take us over to the map. Alright, I'm trying to make the glare a little bit better there. Action 3 for Zoey will involve her gitfoing from Southside to go up to Rivertown and rejoin Daisy for a split second. So that will do it for Zoey. Daisy's turn will take her right back. Action 1 will take her right back to Miskatonic University. Action 2, we're going to investigate, and I'm going to commit the aforementioned deduction. So 5, 6, 7 brings her up 3. And I'll use Higher Ed to go up 4, mostly because I want to try to get 3 clues off this location in one action if I can swing it. So I'm up 4. A 0 gets me 3 clues off a location, so that's very handy. 1, 2, come on, 3. And then Action 3, we'll actually spend 4 clues to get our first cultist out. So our first cultist coming out is Victoria Devereux, the Collector. She'll spawn at Northside, which is actually not too far from Daisy. 332. That's a spawn at Northside. As a parlay, we can spend 5 resources as an action to parlay. Add Victoria to the victory display. Oliver Thomas, the proprietor of the Curiosity Shop, has informed you that a new client has taken a keen interest in a mysterious mask. Victory 1, 1 damage. So that will go up to Northside. We could send Daisy up there to deal with her this coming turn, but that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, the hunting Night Gaunt is exhausted, and Victoria Devereux is not a hunter. So we'll go ahead and start re-readying everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep. The hunting Night Gaunt also readies. I'll try to pay attention to that. Now we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Zoey gains 1 resource and goes to 3. Daisy gains 1 resource and goes to 7. Zoey draws. Overpower, which is a 2 combat skill commit. If you succeed, draw a card. Daisy draws. Dream Diary untranslated. 2 cost to play, will on commit. As an action, search your bonded cards for Essence of the Dream and add it to your hand. As a reaction, after you succeed by 3 or more during a skill test to which Essence of the Dream is committed, record in your campaign log that you have interpreted the dreams. Takes up a hand slot. Mythos phase, our doom on the agenda goes up to 2. And remember, we need 6 to advance, so we're not nowhere close to advancing yet. Zoey draws. Locked door. Revelation, attached to the location with the most clues and without a locked door attached. The attached location can't be investigated. As an action, test Combat 4 or Agility 4. Test Combat 4 to break down the door, or Agility 4 to pick the locks. If you succeed, discard locked door. So one thing to note on the locked door, which is going to south side, by the way. First time we move over to the map, I'll point that out. The important thing to know about that locked door is it stops the location from being investigated, not stops clues from being discovered. So, and I know there's a drawn to the flame. I know there's drawn to the flame in Daisy's deck. So if I have a drawn to the flame with Daisy, or theoretically with Zoey, but this build isn't running drawn to the flame, I could go still grab those clues off of Southside. But that's just kind of a clarification there. Daisy draws. On Wings of Darkness again, I still don't completely mind this, but I still can go deal with Victoria. So I'm down 2. A 0, which wouldn't have helped even if I would have committed Eureka to the test. So Daisy takes another 1 and 1 and moves back to Rivertown. So it just means it's going to take me an extra action to get Daisy up to Northside and deal with Victoria, which still wouldn't be a terrible plan. I could have Zoey stand on guard and wait for the Night Gaunt to come by, which wouldn't be a completely terrible idea. I could go digging for some of the stuff to deal with that, but I'll have a think about what I'm doing there. But we are into the investigation phase, and Daisy's turn will take us over to the map. Right, here's the locked door down here. Like I said, that wouldn't stop a drawn to the flame from getting the clues off the location, but I'm not worried about that right now. So Daisy for action 1, she'll move back to Miskatonic University. Action 2 up to Northside. Victoria will engage, but I'll look at Northside first. Northside is a commercial district that contains many offices and factories, as well as the train station. Flips into Shroud of 3 to 4 clues. As an action, spend 5 resources to gain 2 clues from the token pool. Group limit once per game. In Northside, nothing gets people talking faster than a bit of dough. Victory 1. I'll get the 4 clues for that. And then Victoria would engage to Daisy, except Daisy's third action is going to be to spend 5 resources to put Victoria from her parlay ability in the victory display. So Victoria will move over there, and Daisy will flip over to indicate that she's gone. So Zoey, the question here is this the turn that we try to take that hunting Night Gaunt completely off the board rather than try to run away from it? And I think the answer at this point is yes. So for action 1, Zoey's going to draw a card, so Zoey will draw. 21 or bust. 1 at a time, reveal random tokens from the chaos bag until you choose to stop. Treat each skull, cultist, rune, or elder thing as a 5. The tentacle is a 10, and the elder sign is either a 1 or 11. If the combined value of these tokens, ignoring plus or minus, is 18 or less, gain 4 resources. 19, gain 5. 20, gain 6. 21, gain 9. Dumping into resources for Zoey would not be a terrible idea at all. So I think we'll go ahead and generate some resources looking ahead to that. So we'll spend 2 resources, and we're going to play a little blackjack, folks. So yeah, we're going to stop while we're waiting for a Night Gaunt to come by, and we're going to play some blackjack. So Zoey's first token is a cultist, which is a 5. Let me bring 21 or bust over just so I can keep an eye on it. And back into the bag we go. Come on, focus. 10. Still 10. $15. Yikes. $17. We gotta pull again. Because, well, 18 would get me 4 resources. Yeah, we're gonna pull again. The Elder Sign is an 18, and the Elder Sign is a 1, so that brings me up to 18, and I think that's where I'll stop. Because Zoey needs resources pretty badly, so I want to make sure I get something out of this. So 4 resources will bring her back up to 5. That can go to her discard pile. Then action 3. I could also just emergency cash and dump into her. And just plan on dumping some stuff into hyper awareness. That's an option 2. Problem is I don't have any agility in my hand right now, so to commit to an evade. So yeah, I think I'll just emergency cash. You can never be too prepared, so Zoey will gain another 3 resources, going up to 8. So that will set her up. That'll do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, the Night Gaunt moves in, becomes engaged with Zoey. She would gain a resource from that, but I'm going to spend the resource and exhaust the cross to do 1 damage to the Night Gaunt. So there's our 1 damage going on the Night Gaunt, but Zoey will take 1 and 1 back from the Night Gaunt on the attack. Then we'll go ahead and re-ready everything. And we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Zoey will gain 1 resource and go to 9. Daisy will gain 1 and go to 3. Zoey will draw. Oh boy, Dark Pact. 2 cost to play, deal 2 damage to an investigator at your location. Forced. When the game ends or you're eliminated, if Dark Pact is still in your hand, remove Dark Pact from your deck and search the collection for the price of failure and add it to your deck. Okay, that's going to be a problem because not only do I have to take damage when I play that, playing it will trigger an attack of opportunity, so that's going to be a big problem for Zoey. Daisy draws. Arcane Enlightenment, 2 cost to play, 2 will on commit. Maximum hand size increased by 1. You have an additional hand slot which can only be used for a tome asset. Delightful. Mythos phase, Doom on the agenda, goes up to 3. Zoey draws. An Acolyte which goes to an empty location. Forced, after it enters play, place 1 Doom on it. I'm going to put that on... I'm going to put that on downtown right now. I will need to go deal with him sooner rather than later. Daisy draws. Hunting Shadow, Peril. Revelation, she either has to choose one, spend a clue, or take 2 damage. A shadowy figure follows you in the rain. When you look at it, your head pounds in agony and your vision blurs. Unfortunately, I think Daisy has to spend the clue, because she can't afford to take 2 damage right now. Which does set us back a bit in terms of being able to get another cultist out, but I think it keeps our problems from being a lot worse. But we're back into the investigation phase, and Zoe's going to have to deal with this hunting night gaunt now, and I kind of set up to do that, so let's drop down to Zoe's play area. For action 1, Zoe's just going to take a normal attack with the blade. She's... what else is she? Is she going to do anything else with the attack? She's up 3 already, so... she's up 3, so I'm just going to test there. Yeah, we'll test up 3. A 0 gives her damage, and now I would have the option, if I wanted to empower the blade, to spend a charge to deal +1 damage for the attack. If the blade is empowered and this attack defeats an enemy, draw a card and heal a horror. I'm not going to do that on this attack, but on this next attack coming up, where I'm also going to commit Overpower to it, which will bring me up 5. Well, let's see what happens here before I get into what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to get Tentacle Touched, so that, remember, is the auto-fail. So anything I was planning after that, never mind. Action 3 will run the attack back. Still up 3. -1. As I was saying before the tentacle so rudely interrupted me. So -1 means I'm successful. I'm still up 2 on the attack. So now I'll spend a charge from the enchanted blade to empower it, which will deal +1 damage for the attack. So that will defeat the hunting night gaunt, which means I'll move that over. I'll get to heal a horror from Zoe, and I'll draw a card. So Zoe will draw Tetsuo Mori, too noble for his own good. 3 cost to play, lore on commit. Tetsuo Mori may be assigned damage and or horror dealt to other investigators at your location. As a reaction, when Tetsuo Mori is defeated, choose an investigator at your location. That investigator searches either their discard pile or the top 9 cards of their deck for an item asset and adds it to their hand. Shuffle their deck if it's searched. 2 health, 2 sanity on soak. Okay, so that will do it for Zoe. Daisy's turn will take us over to the map. Daisy, our turn is 1 objective. Clues, clues, clues. So to help you out with that, we're going to do 2 things to help you out with that. First of all, we're going to play out the Dream Diary. This will also give her access to her tome action, so we'll go get Essence of the Dream. So it's a 2 cost, it's a 2 wildcard commit. When it would enter my discard pile or be shuffled into my deck, I instead set it outside out of play with bonded cards. Action 2 will investigate, and I'll commit both Essence of the Dream and Eureka for an extra 3 to go up 5. A +1 lets me do a lot of things. So +1 gets me a clue. It lets me record that I've interpreted the dreams. Sorry, just making a note in the campaign log. And then lets Daisy search the top 3 cards of her deck for a card. So let's see what we find here. First up we find Drawn to the Flame, 0 cost to play, Will and Lore on commit. Draw the top card of the encounter deck, then discover 2 clues at your location. That is very tempting right now. Card 2. Forbidden Tome, which that might be a hard sell to activate right now, but I'll think about that. Foreign Tome, or Forbidden Tome untranslated, 1 cost to play, on commit. Uses 5 secrets. As an action, exhaust Forbidden Tome and spend a secret to draw a card. Then, if you have 10 or more cards in your hand, and there are no secrets on Forbidden Tome, you may discard it to record in your campaign log that you have translated the tome. And Dr. Milan Christopher, Professor of Entomology, 4 cost to play, Lore on commit. You get +1 lore, and after you successfully investigate, gain a resource. The only way Daisy's getting to the resources right now to pay for Milan is by taking a lot of resource actions, and I don't think I can afford the tempo swing, the tempo slowdown right now to do that. So I'm probably not going to take Milan. Forbidden Tome is also a bit slow right now, so I think we're just going to take Drawn to the Flame. I think that right now is probably the safest play that we have, so these 2 get shuffled back in. Alright, so we'll give that a cut. And then action 3, Daisy will run the investigate back. This time she's up 2. This thing does not want to focus today, does it? Let me see if I can focus it any better from this side. Much better. Elder Sign. Let me keep that out of the bag so we can take a look at Daisy's Elder Sign. +1 if you, or +0 I should say. If you succeed, draw a card for each tome you control. So we do succeed to get the clue off. And Daisy draws a card because she does control a tome, so Daisy draws. Another Hawkeye folding camera, which might not be helpful right now, but we'll give that some thought later. That will do it for Daisy, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, the Acolyte's not an enemy, so it doesn't move. So we'll go ahead and start resetting everything. Resetting and readying everything, actually. That goes up there. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Zoey gains 1 resource and goes to 10. Daisy gains 1 and goes to 2. Zoey will draw a machete, 3 cost to play, combat on commit. Fight, getting +1 for the attack. If the attacked enemy is the only enemy engaged with you, this attack deals +1 damage. Daisy draws another deduction level 2. That is very beautiful right now. But I'm getting ahead of myself there. Mythos phase, Doom on the agenda goes up to 4, but we're at 5 because of the Acolyte in play. Zoey draws Obscuring Fog. Revelation attached to your location. Limit 1 per location. Attached location gets +2 Shroud. Forced. After attached location is successfully investigated, discard Obscuring Fog. Except Zoey doesn't give Except we give exactly zero diddly. We give exactly diddly squat about that because there are no clues on Rivertown and it's not relevant to us right now. Daisy draws. False lead. If you have no clues, false lead gains surge, except Daisy has 2 clues. If you have 1 or more clues, test lore 4. For each point you fail by, place one of your clues on your location. So, well, I think Daisy's up 1, and I think that is where she'll have to test. I could probably lose the 2 clues to the location and be able to pull them back this turn. So I might not be that alarmed by it. So we'll just go ahead and test up 1. We're doing this again, are we? We seem to focus a little better from this side. A 0 means Daisy keeps her clues, which will be very helpful for us. So anyway, the Mythos card is done. Heading into the investigation phase, if we don't go take that cultist out right now, we're going to advance next turn. And I think we need the tempo a little too much. So let's go join. So for the investigation phase, let's start it by joining Zoey at the map. Action 1, Zoey will start by heading up to Easttown. Take a look here. The Easttown neighborhood, situated on the northern banks of the Miskatonic River, contains lower-class housing, the Arkham police station, and popular eateries like Velma's Diner. Here we find Shroud of 2 clues. While you're in Easttown, reduce the cost of each ally asset you play by 2. So we'll get the 2 clues out for that. I could stop here and investigate, but our bigger priority is taking out this Acolyte so we don't advance this turn. So we don't advance in the next Mythos phase, which action 2, Zoey will move into downtown. The downtown area of Arkham is filled with government buildings, including City Hall, the first Bank of Arkham, Independence Square, and including City Hall. The first Bank of Arkham, Independence Square, and Arkham Asylum can also be found in this area. It is the busiest district in the city. Flips into Shroud of 3, 2 clues. As an action, gain 3 resources, limit once per game. We'll call this a loan. So we'll get the 2 clues out for that. And then Zoey would engage with the Acolyte. She'll gain the resource for that, but she'll immediately spend it and exhaust the cross to tell the Acolyte to get bent. Which means we're not advancing this turn. The only thing I don't like about that plan is now Zoey's kind of stuck really with not much to do right now, except for action 3 if I want to. And I think I'm going to do this because I don't want this in. I don't want the price of failure going into Zoey's deck, especially. This is a little more metagamey, but this is kind of knowing what's coming up. So I'm going to play Dark Pact. Deal 2 damage to an investigator at your location. Zoey counts as an investigator at her location. So she'll do 2 damage to herself, and then that's all handled. So that will do it for Zoey. Daisy. How do we want to do this with Daisy? So I think first thing we'll do is tome action. We'll get Essence of the Dream back. Then action 1, we'll investigate Northside, committing Essence of the Dream. Do I want to try to pull those? I think I probably want to try to pull those clues off in one action. So I think we're going to commit going to commit deduction to go up 3. And I don't necessarily need Essence of the Dream because I'm already up 3 right now. I'll probably need that if I want to come down here and try to grab that clue. Tentacle touched. Not a good time for that. I mean, I suppose there's worse times I could have gotten tentacle touched, but still. Not real happy with the tempo swing there. So action 2, I think we'll have to run it back. Last resort is to use my Drawn to the Flame here. Actually, that might not be a terrible idea to just Drawn to the Flame here. Yeah, let's do that. Let's Drawn to the Flame here, so Daisy will draw. Wizard of the Order, spawn at any empty location. Retaliate, so it will attack if I miss. Force at the end of the Mythos phase, place a Doom on Wizard of the Order. Okay, I'll explain more about how that interaction works when we're placing the Doom on the Wizard of the Order. So I'm actually going to place that here at Easttown, because then I can send Zoey on her next turn to go deal with him. We'll get the 2 clues off of the location, which will give Daisy a second charge on her Hawkeye folding camera. And then for action 3, we'll spend the 4 clues to put another cultist into play. So let's see who we're putting into play this time. We are putting Peter Warren into play. 2/3/3, the Occult Professor. As an action, spend 2 clues to parlay. Add Peter Warren to the victory display. A professor of the occult has been seen reading strange books that relate to cannibalism. Maybe he knows something we don't. Victory 1 does a damage on attack. So he goes to Miskatonic University. That will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, the Wizard of the Order isn't a hunter, and neither is Peter Warren. So we'll go ahead and ready everything here. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. I forgot to ready Zoey's cross. I'm going to keep that close, though. Zoey gains 1 resource and goes to 9. Daisy gains 1 and goes to 3. Zoey draws. Smite the Wicked. Oh, joy. Revelation, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until an enemy is spawned, or is discarded. Attach Smite the Wicked to that enemy and spawn it at the location furthest from you. Forced, when the game ends, if attached enemy is in play, Zoey Samaras suffers 1 mental trauma. Okay, so we discard cards off the top of the deck until we hit an enemy. That can go. Okay, here we go. Delightful. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like it goes down here. Okay, this is actually a bit of a problem now. Because the enemy we hit was an Acolyte, which spawns the location furthest from us, and after it enters play, we place a Doom on it. Daisy draws. Weaknesses all around. Internal injury. Revelation, put internal injury into play in your threat area. That's what revelation means. It means do whatever when you reveal or draw it. Forced, at the end of your turn, take 1 direct damage. 2 actions to discard internal injury. Great. So Zoey's now on a mission from God, and Daisy's internal injuries have cropped up on her. So heading into the Mythos phase, remember what I said about not advancing the agenda? I lied, but I had no way of knowing I was going to be lying, so getting the Acolyte from Zoey was enough to... Getting the Acolyte from Zoey's Smite the Weakness was enough to advance the agenda, so let's see what we find here. we find... Oh, delightful. Masked Hunter, silently stalking, 442. Spawn engaged with prey. Prey is most clues. Hunter. The Masked Hunter gains +2 per health per investigator, so it's going to be actually an 8. While you're engaged with the Masked Hunter, you can't discover or spend clues. Victory 2, 2 health, and 1 sanity on attack. Now, because we're actually tied for 0 clues right now, we get to choose who we want to have this spawn engaged with. So I'm going to have it spawn engaged with Zoey, which will immediately give her a resource, but I'll spend the resource and exhaust the cross to do a damage to the Masked Hunter. So now Zoey basically needs to drop everything and take this out, to the point where I may need to send Daisy over and give her a hand with this, but let's see if the Mythos deck is going to let us do that. But we need to check out the new agenda. Time is running short. Yes, it is. The minutes pass quickly as your investigation continues. As an action, resign. You don't want to risk taking too long, so you head to safety with the information you've gathered. Right. Zoey draws. Mysterious Chanting. Place 2 doom on the nearest cultist enemy. If there are no cultist enemies in play, search the encounter deck and discard pile for a cultist enemy and draw it, shuffling the encounter deck. Well, the nearest cultist enemy is actually the Masked Hunter, so we're placing 2 doom on him. This is going to turn into a big problem. Daisy draws. False Lead. If you have no clues, it gains Surge. So Daisy surges into... a Hunting Night Gaunt. Wonderful. Zoey got rid of one of these earlier, but Daisy is now in a position where she's going to need to do something about that pronto. So we're into the before we leave the Mythos phase, the Wizard of the Order gets a doom on him going up to 3. Now, as of our current situation in the last scenario, in the last turn, I wanted to clarify that. So the Wizard of the Order gets a doom at the end of the Mythos phase, but we check if we're advancing doom at the beginning of the Mythos phase after we put the initial doom on. So the doom that would have been put on the Wizard of the Order didn't actually cause the agenda to advance, but because it didn't specify having the Ancient Evils clause on it. So now we're in a very dire situation. So yeah, we're in a very... Okay, that should be a second evidence, not an exhaustion token for Daisy. So actually our situation just got pretty dicey in a hurry. Delightful. So, good lord. Right. So looking into the investigation phase... This couldn't have gone much more sideways on us, but let's move over to Daisy and we'll move into her play area. Zoey's going to need help with that Masked Hunter, but in order to be able to help, Daisy needs to get away from this Hunting Night Gaunt. So for Action 1, as much as I don't like it, she's going to have to try to evade, committing Essence of the Dream to go up 3. Now, remember, we double negative modifiers, so I'm not as safe with being up 3 as I would like. Rune, I'm pretty sure... Oh, geez. Yeah, I just looked at this. -3. If you fail, place one of your clues on your location. Good news and bad news there. Good news is we don't have a clue. Bad news is the -3 turns into a -6, so we fail. I think we're going to have to take a tome action, but we're going to have to take an attack of opportunity to do this. So Daisy is in a very bad way right now, so she's got to take an attack of opportunity to get this back, because there's no way she's evading without it. So action 2 will run it back. Same situation, up 3. Elder Sign this time actually succeeds, so the hunting Night Gaunt will get exhausted, and then Daisy will draw a card, so she will draw, because we do control a tome, so she draws. Rite of Seeking, 4 cost to play, lore on commit. Uses 3 charges. As an action, spend a charge to investigate, using will instead of lore. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at your location. But if you pull a bad symbol, immediately lose all remaining actions and end your turn. And then action 3 will bring us over to the map. Unfortunately, Zoe's going to be on her own with that masked hunter for a couple turns. But action 3, Daisy will move over to downtown to help give Zoe a hand with that. So that's it for Daisy's turn. Zoe has to start by fighting the masked hunter. Using the enchanted blade, which will bring her up only 2. Yikes. And retaliates a thing, so we need to be very careful here. Zoe, this is not the time to be getting tentacle touched. 2 damage and a sanity. Action 2 will run that back. And I think I almost have to commit the machete to go up 3. A 0 puts 2 damage puts 1 damage on the masked hunter. There's no point in empowering the blade now. Because it won't defeat the masked hunter. Then action 3, I think we have to try to evade. So I'm even. I'll spend 3 resources into hyper awareness to go up 3. Skull minus X, where X is the highest number of doom on occultist enemy in play, which thankfully is 2. So the masked hunter is evaded, which is fortunate. Oh, at the end of Daisy's turn, she should have taken a damage. I did forget about her internal injury. So that's all 3 of Zoe's actions. That'll do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase. Our hunters are both exhausted, so we'll ready everything. The hunting Night Gaunt wakes up. The masked hunter wakes up as well. Becomes engaged with Zoe. Zoe will re-exhaust the cross to deal damage to the masked hunter, bringing him up to 3. Resetting actions. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Zoe gains 1 resource and goes to 7. Daisy gains 1 and goes to 4. Zoey draws. Stunning Blow. If the skill test is successful during an attack, automatically evade the attacked enemy. That would have been useful last turn. Daisy draws. Lita Chandler, where have you been this entire scenario? Well, actually, you're not. Now that I look at you, you're not particularly relevant in this scenario. While you control Lita, she gains each investigator at your location gets +1 combat, and as a reaction, when an investigator at your location successfully attacks a monster enemy, that investigator deals +1 damage. 3 and 3. Mythos phase, Doom on the agenda goes up to 1, but we're actually at 4 thanks to the Doom on the Masked Hunter and the Wizard of the Order. Zoey draws. Mysterious Chanting for another 2 Doom on the nearest cultist enemy. That would be the Masked Hunter. Then Daisy draws. Crypt Chill. Revelation, test Will 4. If you can't, choose and discard an asset you control. If you fail, choose and discard an asset you control. If you can't, take 2 damage instead. Well, I'm kind of in a bad way on that. Daisy's down 1. Zoey... I think Zoey will commit guts to this. Actually, I don't completely... Now that I look at it, I don't completely mind the fail, but that's going to fit with my larger plan. Yeah, no, I think the only thing that might be helpful is sending Zoey into her deck. Yeah, I think we're still going to commit guts, though. I think we're still going to commit that because I can get Zoey another card into her deck looking for a vicious blow. So I've got a little bit of a larger plan here, so that'll put Daisy up 1, and I'll commit Arcane Enlightenment to put her up 3. Bag is right here. -2, we were up 3, thankfully. So Crypt Chill's gone. Both the cards are discarded, and Zoey gets to draw a card. So Zoey will draw. Evidence. 1 cost to play. Fast. Play after you defeat an enemy. Discover 1 clue at your location. Well, the problem right now... Wizard of the Order gets a Doom at the end of the Mythos phase. That brings us up to 7. So I guess the question here is, do I think Zoey can take out the Wizard of the Masked Hunter without Daisy's help? And I think the answer to that is no. So 4. Actually, she might be able to. The problem right now is that Skull is a -4 right now, and the highest I can get, I can get Zoey up. The highest I can get Zoey is up 3. Problem is, I think I need Daisy's help. I think I need Daisy's help to take the Masked Hunter out. But if I leave Daisy in the scenario, she's going to take a mental trauma. She's going to take a physical trauma, which is not somewhere I want to be. I'm a little less bothered about Zoey taking a mental trauma at this point, because that just brings her down to a 9/5, and there are plenty of investigators at 9/5 territory. So I think the plan here is, do I just take out the Masked Hunter and do I just take the Masked Hunter out and get out of the scenario? I think I do at this point because I tend to protect from trauma if I can. So yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. I'm going to try to take this masked hunter out before I leave the scenario. So with that in mind, let's start with Daisy in the investigation phase, and let's start in her play area. For Action 1, Daisy's going to spend 2 resources to play out her occult lexicon, which through slot pressure will get rid of the Dream Diary. So now on the bonded cards, I want the 3 copies. I have to lift the tray up. There we are. I won't need that. Of Bloodright. We're going to shuffle the other 2 in, but we'll take a quick look at Bloodright first. 0 cost to play, Will, Lore, Combat on Commit. Draw 2 cards, discard up to 2 cards from your hand. For each card you discard this way, you may either gain 1 resource or spend 1 resource to deal 1 damage to an enemy at your location. But this doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. So we'll give this a quick shuffle. Alright, then Daisy will play out her aforementioned Bloodright, so we'll draw 2 cards. So first card up is a Research Librarian, 2 cost to play, Agility on Commit. Reaction, after he enters play, search your deck for a tome asset and add it to your hand, shuffling your deck. And Shortcut, fast, play only during your turn. Choose an investigator at your location. Move that investigator to a connecting location. You know this town like the back of your hand. And then we get to discard 2 cards. We'll discard Rite of Seeking and the second Hawkeye folding camera, which will deal 2 damage to the Masked Hunter. And then that's everything Daisy's got. So for Action 3, Daisy will actually resign. If I leave her in play, the internal injury is actually going to deal her a physical trauma, and I'm less bothered about Zoey going to a 9-5 than I would be about Daisy going to a 4-8. That's slightly metagamey, but I'd feel the same way with any 5-9 investigator taking their 5 any 5-9 or 9-5 investigator taking their 5 stat of trauma. So that's just kind of the rationale there. So I've done everything I can with the Masked Hunter, which means now it's up to Zoey, so let's move into her play area. Action 1, we're going to attack the Masked Hunter with the Enchanted Blade, and I'm going to commit... no, I'm not going to commit yet. I'm going to commit once I'm in a situation where I'm about to defeat the Masked, where I'm trying to defeat the Masked Hunter. So I'm up 2. Cultist is -2, place 1 doom on the nearest cultist enemy. So we do succeed, but that's going to make the skull even more dangerous now. And we would be advancing into the next Mythos phase, except the scenario, if he stays alive, we would advance in the next Mythos phase, but the plan is that he's not going to stay alive. So Action 2, we're going to run the attack back, this time committing Stunning Blow to the attack, so we're up 3. The skull is our most dangerous symbol in the bag right now, because the skull is a -5. Okay, a 0 will let me spend the enchanted... will let me empower the blade to do +1 damage, which will defeat the Masked Hunter. I did forget to put the 1 damage on the Masked Hunter, but he did have 6 damage on him thanks to Zoe's first successful attack. So he goes to the victory display, and I did spend a charge, not that it's going to matter, to heal a horror and draw a card, so Zoe will draw. Prepared for the worst, which is a little late to the party. And then action 3, Zoe is also going to resign. So we're going to call it a scenario and just leave with the information that we've got. So with that, let's move back up top to resolve the scenario, at the end of the scenario. Let's go ahead and get everything set up for scenario resolution.
If no resolution was reached, each investigator resigned or was defeated. Read Resolution 1. Resolution 1. You've managed to obtain some useful information about the cult and its plans. You can only hope it's enough. In your campaign log, under Cultists We Interrogated, record the names of each unique cultist enemy in the victory display. In your campaign log, under Cultists Who Got Away, record the name of each unique enemy still remaining in the cultist deck or in play. If it is Act 1, record the Masked Hunter here as well. If the Ghoul Priest is in the victory display, cross out the Ghoul Priest is still alive in your campaign log. Each investigator earns experience equal to the victory X value of each card in the victory display. Resolution 1.
Okay, we're quite through there. So I was starting to make notes I was starting to record everything in the campaign log. So we did get Victoria Devereaux and the Masked Hunter. But we lost 4 of the cultists. Which could cause a problem for us. We also, we didn't have, the Ghoul Priest was still alive because we took him out. As far as experience is concerned, we got 1, 2, 3, I think 4 experience, right? Yes, 4 experience. Okay, so we're all set there. So that will do it for this playthrough of the Midnight Masks. It's probably going to end up being a busy day on the channel. So later today, I'll be doing the next round of upgrades for the campaign. I'm also going to have probably one more product on. Actually, I might do 2 more unboxings. I got a delivery in yesterday, and I'm going to want to go deep on that and a related product. And then there's another pair of products that I want to go deep on. Then on Wednesday, we're going to debut a new game on the channel as we play Lucidity 6-Sided Nightmares. And next week, the spring campaign will come to its conclusion as we play the Devourer below. Now, once again, I am still curious to hear how the campaign's going, so let me know in the comments section if you're playing along how your campaign's going. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care, everyone.